quote that I recently read. It reads, "Rejection is a sharp pain that dulls over time, and regret is a dull pain that sharpens over time." My desire is that the millions of people who would benefit from our tool when they are 70 years old, they had some rejection. Rejection is part of life, but I don't think regret needs to be.
Best podcast. Tap in. That's it. Subscribe.
This is episode 6 of the STU Street podcast. I'm Sam Morra.
And I'm Arkash Jain.
Joining us today is the founding team of tech startup ByDesign. On the call is CEO Arthur Emma, head of product Nelson Ray, and head of design Chirali Jain. With their mobile app having been launched in May of 2022, the ByDesign team has developed a social planning tool that allows people to design and develop their best lives along with others in a communal network. I'm excited to have the brains behind the operation here to share all the unique features of the app, as well as the ways in which it can better your life starting today. Arthur, Nelson, Chirali, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thanks,
I'd like
guys.
to begin. No, you're good. I'd like to begin by breaking down the pain point that ByDesign is trying to address. I alluded to the community-driven nature of the app, but could you detail for us what problems you see and some of the other current modes of planning, and why is this so problematic?
Absolutely. So I think right now there are a lot of different productivity tools, right? And they all focus on productivity, which means they focus on really basic task lists. They focus on note-taking. They focus on some really basic habit tracking, but there's nothing really out there right now that actually helps you design and live your best life, as I would like to say. So we actually, ironically, instead of focusing on productivity, we focus on helping people achieve your dreams. And if you're going to achieve your dreams, it's actually a much more vibrant ecosystem you have to have. So that means you got to have the productivity features. You have to have calendars, and we do that exceptionally well, better than a lot of people, and task management and all that. But you also have to bring in a community of accountability and support. So you need to be able to share ideas with each other and be able to bring others along with you on the journey. And then last of all, if you want to achieve goals, for example, like if you want to learn a new language, what we do in ByDesign is we have something called maps that with a click of a button, you can download an entire plan for literally anything you can think of to your workspace and calendar. So it's this whole idea of how can you bring together planning, community, and inspirational content into one platform.
It seems like those 3 pillars make ByDesign much more than just a scheduling software company. The app extends past daily planning, monthly planning, or even yearly planning to a more macro view of life where every action has a purpose behind it. Why do you believe this is an important message, and kind of what ways does your company embody this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And Nelson, Chirali, please jump in here after me, because I'm sure you probably have a different slant. But all the research out there suggests that most of us are living without direction and waste an unbelievable amount of time. Right? One of the stats that we like to mention a lot is that only 8% of goals are accomplished, which means that most of us are getting to the end of our lives and we're going to be like, what the heck just happened? Like life just passes by and we just wasted so much of it. And you also have, the rise of COVID, where people now have more time on their hands and they're kind of like, wait a second. What was I doing in the office? Was that meaningful? What do I want to do? So there's definitely this huge movement right now involving purpose and meaning, and actually people taking a step back and looking at their life. And I think that's where something like ByDesign comes in, which is like, hey, let's just stop focusing on all this productivity. It's more than that. How can we bring all this together to actually live our best lives? Nelson and Chirali, you guys have maybe a different take on that, or?
I think part of what we're also trying to accomplish with the community is people who aren't mission driven yet, who haven't found a purpose or don't have goals in mind that they're trying to accomplish, can come and see what the community at ByDesign are achieving and what they're starting. And I think that'll unlock imagination of where their life can take them. So we take the giant leap forward of bringing together downloadable plans to the platform, where if they'd be interested in learning a new language or taking a marketing course for the first time, they'd be able to visualize how they could actually accomplish that on their calendar in the context of everything else that they have going on.
Yeah, that's great. And overall, just to dive into some of those features to a greater extent, Arkash, do you want to take over
Yeah,
there?
absolutely. I mean, Arthur and Nelson, I think you're alluding to obviously the great resignation, like how people just, decided to take a step back and realize, oh my God, we're not living our best lives, right? I was stuck, you might be stuck in a 9-to-5 job, you don't like it, you're compromising on your health. And there's just so much you're missing in your personal life that you just cannot design. So I just want to take a step back and focus more on engineering. So like, how did you, I guess, start with the idea of like, you have a blank page and you have to make an entire product. You're syncing calendars, you're managing tasks, you have a community, as Nelson mentioned it. I've used it and I love it. It's one of the best things, having a community for any kind of platform. So how did you, like, was it brainstorming or talking to people? Can you just elaborate on the process from starting to a blank page to like having an entire product?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can give like the quick intro, and then I'll hand it off to Chirali and Nelson, because they're the brains of so much of what you see right now. The quick start is like about 2 years ago, I was stuck with this. Became obsessed with the problem of, wait a second, there has to be a platform to help me actually bring all this stuff together and make more out of my life, right? So what I did was I brainstormed, I put stuff into Excel, actually, and we got into Dartmouth College's Dolly Lab. They were our first investor, and they helped us really flesh through a lot of different ideas and build our MVP. But if you looked at our MVP, 12, 15 months ago, you would probably use it for like 1 minute if it didn't break down on you, and then you would yell and scream and break your screen out of anger because it was such a terrible product. And that's kind of where Nelson and Chirali came in. So yeah, maybe Nelson and Chirali, maybe you guys can take them through how have you gotten the product to where it is today?
Chirali, you want to start?
Yeah, so the process that we follow right now is, say we start by brainstorming the features that we want to implement. We kind of do our competitive research and all the secondary and primary research that's involved, which includes talking to the users, looking up what's already out there, and then kind of going through making like a user flow. Then we also speak to the devs about, how can this be implemented? And that is when I start doing the lo-fi designs. We kind of do a second set of research, get our high definition designs, get the prototype done. And again, some set of research is done. And that is when we hand off to the devs. That's where Nelson comes in.
And how does that timeline feel from the business perspective, where I know you guys just launched your mobile app this past May. You went from a beta testing phase into that. Can you talk a little bit about that process and when was the right timing to do that?
Nelson, you wanna take a crack at that one?
Mm-hmm. Great question. I think it was, Reid Hoffman is the co-founder of LinkedIn, and he wrote a book called Masters of Scale. And one of his chapters is actually named "Do Things That Don't Scale." Very interesting take. Kind of contradicts the book in a way, but what he's talking about is when you launch, do it early. He said you should be embarrassed by your first public release of your product, and we had some bugs that we knew actually were there, but we knew we had to release. We were actually preparing to attend a Harvard startup fair, and we knew we needed the app out. As well as Reid Hoffman talks about getting your first 50 users who love the product. He says that it's better to have 50 people who love the product than 1 million who just like it. So we got that group of early adopters who really love the product, and we knew it was a good time to launch.
And as you add those new features to appeal to your consumer base, how do you find the balance between finding things that are appealing and having too much where it's overwhelming?
Just super challenging question. And I think something we're trying to figure out. I think something that we constantly hear, and we heard a lot at the BU Fair, which was a blast. We saw you guys at, which is that some of our competitors, like Notion, for example, who compete in the productivity space, not the community and the goal side of things, they're really overwhelming, right? So I think, yeah, you guys, Chirali, Nelson, you may have some stuff to something to add there. I think, I think one of the things that you got to be obsessed over, right? You have to be obsessed over is UX design. And I think there's a huge movement that has been in the startup world where they kind of undervalue design early on, and they say, oh, just produce these things that kind of solve a quick pain point, and design doesn't matter. But if you think about Apple and you think about Steve Jobs, they were all design.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I think Chirali has just been an absolute game changer for us, because she's an unbelievably talented designer. So I think maybe I'll punt that to you, Chirali. What does design mean to you, and how do you use design to help our users not be overwhelmed and adopt the product more easily?
I think personally, and then also at ByDesign, my approach towards design has been minimalism, right? Because the more options you show people, the more things you show people, they're going to get confused, they're going to get overwhelmed. So that's what we're trying to do, right? To kind of get away from that and make it easier. And since there are a lot of applications out there who are doing it, but they have a really huge learning curve, that's what we're trying to eliminate. And as I said, that's where minimalism comes in. That's what we're trying to follow. So yeah, that's the approach.
So I want to follow up on what all you guys said. So Nelson, you mentioned Reid Hoffman, and he said that how it's better to have 50 people love your product than 1 million people like it. And Arthur and Chirali, as you mentioned, how important the user design is. The users should be interacting with your product, not just thinking about it. They should be living in it. So my question to all of you guys would be, users ultimately become what we can call as brand champions. So how do you find those brand champions starting out? And I guess, how do you, if you do not find those brand champions, how do you persevere? What's the most important skill or mindset that you need if you cannot find someone to champion for you?
Yeah, I can give a quick bit. I think Nelson's going to have some interesting thoughts on here, because he's interacted a lot with several of our brand champions. It's easier, right, if you are Untuck It, for example, the shirt company, right? And their problem that they're solving is super clear, right? People that are tall want to have shirts that are a little bit longer, that look good untucked. Great. You're going to do that, and people are going to be your brand champions pretty quick. When you're trying to create a really social platform for planning, it's going to be a little tougher, because users already have really high expectations, right, of UI and of functionality. I think what we did at first was we said, and I know this is kind of going against some of the things I said earlier, but you do want to. You don't want, you may have a bunch of pain points, but for us, for example, we focused on our calendar and adding tasks to our calendar, and there wasn't anything that did that. So what that allowed us to do early on was it allowed us to bring in 10 or 15 people that simply just wanted to be able to plan their tasks on their calendar in an easy way. And because of that, we got some really big brand ambassadors. But I think that's, what you find out is those brand ambassadors are not going to be enough to push your product really forward even more, because and that's when developing your product more matters. And that kind of would, go to Nelson for that. What are some ways that we've been, searching for brand ambassadors and including them into the development of our product?
Yeah, we've done user interviews with people of all different walks of life. One that I really remember was at that Harvard fair I mentioned earlier. I met somebody who was all paper planning. She was a Harvard student. She was doing exceptionally well that way. And then she fell in love with our product and she's been using it ever since. And the ability to take a checklist that she usually would have on physical paper and drag that to a calendar, and then she can visualize those homework assignments and how she's going to, take care of her health by working out and attend these club meetings all in one place. She just fell in love with. And we've taken note of that stuff, and something that we're pursuing now is actually university ambassadors, people who love a product. We're going to be kind of our evangelists and tell other people about us.
And
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, go for it. I want to hear.
No, I mean, I think we're getting super creative with how we can create what we call a viral engine within our application, and then at the same time increase the feedback loop exponentially, right? Faster, because when you talk about like startups, a lot of times the big things are like, how can you make your product viral? How can you increase that feedback loop as quick as possible, right? So what we're doing now, and Chirali and Nelson are doing exceptional work on this. We're making it very easy, basically, to send out thousands of invites to people really quickly. So that's one other thing. And then, like, from the feedback loop, we built an in-app chat within our application, right? And the ironic thing is, you'd be like, oh, of course, the main reason why you're going to push forward that functionality is because you want people to be able to communicate. But actually, ironically, the main reason why we did that was because we wanted to communicate with our users. And it's been unbelievable. We've had so many people that have reached out with feedback and with questions and with compliments because of that. So I don't know if that helps. That also is one way we've been finding, brand ambassadors as well. I don't know if that helps at all, but
I think that user interaction is definitely an important piece of the puzzle, especially because, using your example before of Untuckit, they have a very clear problem they're trying to solve.
Yep.
While an application like yours is trying to solve a variety of people's problems in an efficient and simplistic way, so that the ease of it will ease their lives.
Yep.
How much is it important to keep in mind that learning curve for people using your application? Because they're attracted to your app because it's going to simplify their life. So if the application is too overwhelming, it might counteract the true purpose. So how do you find that balance?
Yeah, I don't know. It's okay. Once again, I can start this one, guys. You have a different perspective. I don't know if I think Chirali will definitely be a big supporter of like trying to, how can we make ByDesign simpler and simplifying your life? For me, though, personally, our lives are complicated, and it's less about simplifying as it is of how can you eliminate the stress in your life by being able to fluidly plan out things with the support of other people so you can live your best life. So simple, it is simpler in that you don't have to live in chaos anymore because you're able to bring these things together and plan. But I don't know if like necessarily we're like going to people and be like, you should use ByDesign because we're going to make your life simpler. I don't know, Nelson, Chirali, do you guys agree with that, disagree, or?
I mean, as far as we're concerned about the application, we're definitely going to have some kind of a learning curve, but that's what we are working towards, right? To eliminate it as much as possible, to make it as easy on the users as possible, by kind of looking at and working on the onboarding of the users, or from how do they start using the application, with what is the first thing that they see. So yeah, those are the things, those are the little details that we're trying to cover to make it as easy as it could be on the users.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an important thing. And it seems like so far you guys are on a fantastic track with that. I mean, you went from, as I said, beta testing within this past year to now you're already fine-tuning a great product. So you're obviously operating in a difficult ecosystem. A lot of people describe the startup realm as a lottery. What traits do you believe are important to the core of your team to make it a successful journey?
Nelson, I feel like you're
so we recently had a team values brainstorm session, and our top two values were, number one was be adventurous. So it's kind of being curious, the journey you can take the customers on. So like when it comes to maps, it's like, it's incredible, right? You can take these customers on a journey of installing a course plan to their calendar. Like we just find that super fascinating, and also helping them reach their potential. And there's something just fulfilling about that work that we're doing. So curiosity. And then the second one is having a sense of humor. And what that means to me is enjoying the process and what you're doing, because there's all these hills and valleys, and things are exciting, and then then there's rejection sometimes, whether it's an investor or whatever it be, and you just need to figure out how to enjoy the process and not the destination.
Yeah, there's something that we do a lot, and Nelson and I mean, this is one of the reasons why we were so excited about bringing Chirali on as as one of our core team members, is just being, I mean, it sounds silly because of course we're in entrepreneurship, but having that entrepreneurial, trait, right? Being willing to do whatever it takes to just move the needle forward, not get stuck in your own silo, be able to keep the big picture in mind so that you can move and shift, but also at the same time, dive into a number of different areas. And also just having that, that passion and that grit, right? If you don't have that, I know, like they say that, startups are most likely to fail, right? But I think if you look at the startups that succeed and people that do it over and over and over again, they really make it happen out of a pure force of will. And I really believe that. I believe, not that I want to sound like crazy, like will is everything, but like, if you really put your mind to something and you're going to do whatever it takes, even if you may not be able to building exactly the right product, you're going to find a way to make it happen. I think that's also bringing resources together. I started off with a lot of entrepreneurs that kind of just went into their own silo. They didn't bring other people on board. They didn't bring any other resources, and they just, almost all of them have flopped out now. But if you're someone who's like, okay, I'm not going to rely on myself for everything. I'm going to look outwards. Who are people that I need to be able to be successful? What are resources I need to have to be successful? I mean, you can do that. Suddenly your chances go way up, right? Like imagine if I was like doing this by myself, managing some developers, it would be a disaster, right? So now we have an incredible team that's able to work together to, push the needle forward.
It seems like,
sorry,
go for it.
Go ahead.
It seems like it's almost a sense of perspective, and just seeing the bigger picture pushes the smaller details. I think Arkash wanted to expand on this a little bit more, but what are the advantages to having 3 unique perspectives within your team as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, we also have we also have more perspectives than that. We have some incredible advisors. We have our development team is superb. So, it's not just the 3 of us that are on this call, but I mean, obviously right now we're the core members. I don't know. We need to get better at this, but we have this expression I like the expression, which is, it's good to go to battle against each other in a good way, right? I think if you have a bunch of diverse perspectives and you throw an idea out there and you all feel safe and confident that you can really fight for what you think is right, I believe that the better idea, usually prevails. I mean, it's just pure math, right? If you have one person, one mind, you're only going to be able to generate so many ideas. And if you think all those ideas are just going to come from you, you're nuts, right? So if you have brilliant people like Chirali that comes from like an incredible design perspective, Nelson, who's just like coming up with amazing product ideas all the time, I come up with occasional good ideas, and you kind of throw those things together, you can really do some cool stuff.
Definitely.
So I just want to ask you something, Arthur, and like the whole team, I guess, in general. So you said that you should not be siloed. That if you're just like, it's just one person coming up with stuff, you're just never going to grow. And Arthur, you mentioned that, you just have to like have will to just keep going ahead. And by just the sheer force of will, I mean, there's a lot of other factors, but you need to have willpower. And Nelson mentioned it a while ago that you need to be curious. You need to be adventurous to explore things. So a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of people, they get bogged down when they face their first failure, and a lot of them just give up. So what do you think they should be looking for? I mean, you touched upon those, but you mind elaborating? What do you think should be the most important value for an entrepreneur to just keep going, or just not just an entrepreneur, any student to just keep going and, face failure?
Yep. I got this. There's a quote that I recently read. It reads, "Rejection is a sharp pain that dulls over time, and regret is a dull pain that sharpens over time." So with that understanding, it could be, okay, I want to start a business. I'd be curious, how that could go about. But I see a lot of rejection in the beginning. There's going to be difficulty building the product. Investors will say no. There'll just be problems, nonstop problems, especially in the beginning. And you could say, okay, here's the business I want to build, but I want to stay in my comfort zone. So you avoid it, and then you blink your eyes, and then you're like 70 years old, and then you're full of regret. And that regret was dull when you decided not to take that leap of faith, and then it sharpened over time. And my desire is that the millions of people who would benefit from our tool, the impact we can have on them is that when they are 70 years old, they had some rejection. Rejection is part of life, but I don't think regret needs to be.
It seems like that also speaks
advice.
to the idea of trying risks while you're young and really getting that experience so you know what that failure is like and can progress from it. The other week, I had the opportunity to talk to Alex Dunn, a software engineer for a blockchain startup. He decided to enter the workforce right out of high school as a software developer rather than go to college. While this question might be kind of independent of the college versus workforce argument, it's the overall conversation has shed a lot of light on the need for real world experience for a lot of college students and young adults. Can you speak a little bit as to the skills that real world experience can help a student develop and why it is so important on top of their coursework?
Nelson, I feel like it's you again.
Sorry, can you say a question one more time?
Can you speak a little bit to how real world experience can benefit a student on top of their coursework or studies?
I think like good examples would probably be like Zuckerberg. Like you've probably seen the movie, right? He's studying computer science, but his curiosity is through the roof. And there's a scene where one of his classmates asked if a girl was in a relationship, and Zuckerberg was like, I have no idea. And then it clicked for him. It was like, what if we added that to the bio? And he stormed out of the classroom and he got to coding. And I think doing stuff outside of your coursework, if you're a curious person, I think you'll just do it anyways. And if you're not a curious person, I encourage you to do it, because I think a lot of growth happens when you have the willpower to try and explore different things. I think curiosity goes a long ways, and that'd be my advice to students.
Yeah, I'll add something there, and maybe I could be totally wrong, but I can almost guarantee it that if you did some analysis, right, where you looked at people and how they spent their time in college, right? I'm not saying that if you don't just hit the books all college and then go to grad school and hit the books again and then go become a lawyer and work at a corporation, or maybe one day you can have, be really great at what you do. Awesome. But I guarantee the huge movers out there, the people that really shake up society, the people that have the biggest impact, in my opinion, I guarantee it, they all did things like you guys are both doing in college right now. I guarantee that if you looked at how they spent their college years, they all got involved with different activities. They all explored ideas. They all tried to build businesses. They all try to do those things. I could almost guarantee it, because I know for me personally at BU, I got all my value out of leading student government. If I hadn't done that, I mean, I would have read some good philosophy books and taken some good business courses. And now I look at Nelson, right, who had the opportunity to go to pretty much any school, he wanted, right? And I'm like, I always joke with him all the time. I'm like, Nelson, can you imagine if you went to school right now and were like taking a writing class? Instead, you're managing like a big team and you're like giving, multi, whatever pitches. I mean, it's just, Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, school matters, but getting involved is probably even more impactful in my opinion.
And
I
there's
think
that
it's those non-traditional experiences, right? I'm sorry. I just wanted to say this, Sam, because I remember Arthur and we were talking on Saturday, and I was like, Arthur, we were talking about what I wanted to do after I graduated. So I was like, I have this whole plan where, I want to, work as a software engineer and go to grad school. And you're like, all right. But then I mentioned that, my core interest lies in entrepreneurship and starting a startup or just working at such an, I guess, innovative environment. And I guess you made a comment, you were like, you're going to look back and it's just, you have all your 20s to just explore. You're worried right now about like the next class or like college, but I know what you meant was that, I guess right now we don't have the burden of expectation. I mean, we have the burden of expectation, but we're relatively free, right? We don't have a family, we don't have we don't have a lot of stuff that we have to fall back on. We can explore, and I think this is something a lot of young people just fail to do. So that's why I think what Nelson is doing and what you're doing right now, it's just a statement to everybody who's just looking at every student, and it just I guess gives them the kick to try out something new. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to say that.
Wait, sorry.
I just wanted to say that. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just give you a little bit of twist though. It's not just when it's your age. I mean, Chirali was going to go to an awesome design program in London, and she had a plan for a while, and she decided not to do it, and she's coming to Portland for Techstars on Friday. So Chirali, maybe you can give them your insight, about why you decided to do that and the risk, the risk that you're taking.
Yeah, sure. So I spoke to them about this a little bit, but initially, as I got done with my undergrad last year, and then I was like, okay, I'll work for a while and then see what happens. So then I was just like, I can do my master's and work side by side. So that's what the plan was. And then suddenly Arthur messages that we got accepted into Techstars, and you need to come to the States. So that's that is when I was in this place where I had to decide, okay, it's either masters, I go to London, complete my masters, get a traditional degree, or I get to go to Techstars, I meet new people, I work on the startup, and obviously work on my skills here. So yeah, with that being said, obviously there were other factors like my visa and stuff, but everything happened. And then I mean, I knew I can do masters anytime in my life. I can come back from here, do my masters, but this experience, I'm never gonna get. So this was like a clear choice for me.
I think that's interesting, especially because the way you guys all connected speaks to not only just the interesting nature of your guys' startup, but also the fact that surrounding yourself with the right people and building the right team can truly drive a product just exponentially. What would you say is the importance of having productive people, or just finding those people around you, whether that's in a work atmosphere like you guys have, or just in your personal life for personal growth?
Finding the right people. I think, Arthur, you mentioned a book that you want me to read called Borrowed Brilliance. And I think there's some points out there that you mention all the time. It's usually not people coming up with like super original ideas. It's taking the ideas of others and then fine tuning it. And then in that process, there's a lot of group collaboration. Also, I think getting grouped up with people who can push you and motivate you and you're inspired by is very good. And that's also something that we're trying to do with the ByDesign community.
Yeah, there's something to be said, guys, about I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that you don't want different types, obviously you want different types of personalities, but there's something to be said about a person, like, because obviously, Nelson, Chirali, and I approach problems very differently. So from that perspective, we're very, very diverse. But where we're not diverse is, I think we share certain characteristics that I just don't want to spend time with people if they don't have those characteristics. Like, one, not negative. Like, if you're a negative person, I don't want to be near you ever. And I just tried to, and I know it's kind of ruthless, but I just tried to just remove you from my life. Even if you're like a family member, right? Like, you're passionate. Like, are you just gonna be somebody that's just gonna like, yeah, I just want to go enjoy the weekend? No, if like, I want to be working with you. I know these guys share when we came with our values. Like, we want to be around people that have like passion and are ready to get after it and just crush it, right? So I think if you have people that have that commitment and that enthusiasm and that positivity, and then they also come at problems differently, you're good to go. So it's like, diversity is good when we're talking about like, skill sets, but I don't know. I don't think diversity of, like, of character, in my opinion, is a good thing. Like, you don't want have somebody on your team that has high integrity and somebody on your team that has low integrity and be like, look at that diversity. Like, there's certain traits and values and virtues that you want to be consistent. So.
And as you guys have kind of grown to know each other better, I'm guessing those synergies have meshed a little more. But as you started, I bet the growing pains of a young organization can be kind of challenging. If you were to go back to the formation of your company or to the roots of even the idea and tap yourself on the shoulder, what advice would you give those prospective entrepreneurs? And can I just hear a quick piece from each of you?
I think for me, it'd be that same quote: the rejection is a sharp pain that dulls over time, and regret is a dull pain that sharpens over time. And it's just keep on going forward, even though that there's going to be some, rejection, because I don't want to live with that regret and unknowing that, like, if I were to give up, what I missed out on, I would not be at peace with myself if I just gave up. And knowing that, I would encourage others that if they have a goal or a dream in their mind, that they pursue it at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Okay, I guess I can jump in, Chirali. But yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, because I look back in retrospect and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I would have killed to have known to have the shot that we have as a team now 2 years ago. So I mean, I obviously, if I started again, I would do things faster probably, but I think I know, if I could hit myself on the shoulder, or tap myself on the shoulder earlier, I would say I would have loved to have done what I was doing in my early 20s instead of being 30. I mean, I think it's like, obviously I'm still relatively young in the entrepreneurship community, but it's just harder, right? And there's more risks. There's more risks that I have right now than others have. So I think if I could have done this earlier, that would have been a huge one. And then the second one is raising money, right? I think most people have a way to raise more money quicker than they think they could. I think there's ways to do it, especially, to get people to bet on you and not necessarily on your idea. And I think I waited way too long for that. I think I could have just, put together a presentation. And after 4 months, I think I could have raised several $100,000 instead of being like, oh, wait, I can't do that until I have a functional MVP and before we have Dartmouth supporting us and all of that. So I think, raise money earlier if you can, and start entrepreneurship earlier. That's what I would say.
I would just like to add something. So I think one thing that I would go back and advise myself would be trust the process, right? And take the risk. And this is something that I heard in one of the podcasts, that in life, when you're like given two choices, you choose the one that's difficult, right? Because you don't go the easy way. You choose the ones that difficult. So yeah.
I think that actually speaks perfectly to kind of the overall aspect of what you guys are doing and the value of betting on yourself. Do you guys have any final statements as to what that means and why that's the message you're putting across?
I think be adventurous. I have a story that backs up the trait of being curious and adventurous. So when I was 15 years old, I had a friend come over and we were both like entrepreneurial. And I think something happens if you watch the TV show Shark Tank. you come up with, especially if you're young, you come up with a business idea and you're like, all right, I got the plan. I'm going to pitch VCs tomorrow. It's going to be at this valuation. And I'll be a billionaire, right? It's ridiculous stuff, right? And we came up with a silly idea that both of us sleep in, whatever, that you would wake up, you press a button and it would shift all your tasks back. So this is way back. I was already thinking about calendar stuff. The fact that I'm still doing it today is just amazing. That I had no idea it'd get this far along. I'd still be doing the same stuff. But we were both curious, and I moved a TV from one room and brought it on top of a conference room table in my house. And we both sat and watched an entire Coursera series on Swift. And we did it all overnight. It was an all-nighter, and we both each had 4 Bang energy drinks. So we were caffeinated up, and we were just having fun time, just learning. And we were super curious. And that curiosity, back when I was 15, if I didn't have that, I have no idea where I'd be today. And the fact that I'm still doing that stuff and I still have that interest, and it was somebody who came over and motivated me to make that leap into exploring my curiosity. That's just ingrained in our platform and what we hope others will experience as well. So be curious and adventurous, and have a community around you that can support you and push you.
I urge every listener out there to download the app, and you can find that curiosity and that community within that space. In addition to that, I think all the listeners can see that the messages you guys are putting across are also seen in the software, and just keep staying on that track. And I think you guys really have something.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
I'd just like to thank you all for coming on. Arkash, thank you as well. This has been episode 6 with the ByDesign team. You can find their application in the Apple App Store and visit their website as well. A lot of great information there. So thank you.
Thanks, guys.